Can you believe it's already been almost 8 years? It feels like yesterday since Nintendo and Monolith Soft released Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and turned me, and many others, into die-hard fans. The wonderful characters, breathtaking world, addicting gameplay, and unforgettable narrative have stood the test of time nearly a decade after its release. Some people love it.
It's so incredibly beautiful to me. I love these characters. I love this game. Even without all this stuff, the exploring the world and having fun in combat to me was, I couldn't get enough.
Others despise it, and forever will cause perpetual discourse for the foreseeable future. But as aforementioned, nearly a decade has passed since the release of the most prolific entry in the Xeno series. Now that Xenoblade X has gotten its own definitive edition after turning 10, eyes are all on Xenoblade 2 as discussions have been brewing about its own eventual definitive edition. A Xenoblade 2 definitive edition has been a perpetual thought in my mind ever since Xenoblade 1 got its own definitive edition 5 years ago. Xenoblade 2 is my favorite game of all time, but even I could recognize that this game has numerous flaws. I initially thought an eventual definitive edition would be the solution to those issues, and people could finally recognize Xenoblade 2 for the masterpiece it is. But over the course of those years, I started to question the notion in its entirety. If you had asked me then, I would have agreed in a heartbeat. But now, I'm not so sure, and the past few months have done nothing but further justify these feelings. So, in this video, I want to pose a question. Does Xenoblade Chronicles 2 even need a definitive edition? But before we dive into that, I have another question for you all. Did you know that only 9.2% of you guys are subscribed? If you're enjoying the video, leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. I want to try to hit 9k subs this year, so it will be appreciated. If you want to support me even further, consider becoming a member. You can get some exclusive perks like early access to videos, shoutouts, and exclusive content. You'll be taking off some financial burden from me, as these videos take a ton of time to make, and in turn, you get some dope ass perks. But either forms of support are appreciated, and you'll get my love for life. Alright, feeling over. Let's get back to that question from earlier. But in order to reach our answer, first we need to examine, well, what makes a definitive edition to begin with. The term definitive edition is easily understandable upon first glance. It's the definitive version of any specific piece of media, whether it be movies or video games. These re-releases include better visuals and some extra content compared to their original releases. Yeah, some definitive editions are better than others, but Xenoblade's definitive editions tend to be on the upper echelon of remasters. These versions get a visual overhaul, quality of life improvements, and most importantly, brand new content. These new additions tend to be bonus content added to the original game, and a brand new story picking up on where the original left off. Now with all of these points established, Xenoblade 2 can definitely benefit from the definitive edition format, as due to its short dev time, it has a laundry list of issues and annoyances that can be rectified. We can get a visual overhaul as well, similar to the previous DEs, but I don't know how I feel about the art style being touched at all. The youthful art style Saito brought to the table really fits the narrative told in a way where replacing it with Saito's style in Xenoblade 3 or using another artist would just feel off. That goes double for the blade designs, as homogenizing them into a single artist's work would defeat the point of blades being these unique, otherworldly beings which are excellently represented by the multiple artists they got on board. Just increase the resolution and we'll be golden. The UI could get a massive overhaul, as it was one of Xenoblade 2's biggest pain points, making it snappier and clearer for players to understand. The tutorials can actually be helpful instead of being one-off and frustrating. The blade summoning system and field skills could get some very much needed quality of life improvements, like improved pity pools, drop rates, and the checks looking at your entire Blade collection instead of only the ones in your party. They could also include quality of life features that were in future entries, like 1DE's quest tracking or Xenoblade 3's ability to skip travel to a unique monster's tombstone. Not to mention the new content that could be added, like new blades done by various artists, or more Xeno callbacks / fan favorites via the Land of Challenge, an expansion to the Land of Challenge with new challenges, new costumes, and even add bonuses for completing Torna, like getting to have Jin, Malos, and the rest of the Torna blades in your party. This is only the tip of the iceberg on the possibilities the classic Definitive Edition format can do to Xenoblade 2 as a whole, and I didn't even mention Torna and the overhauls it could get as part of the package. But there's only a couple of issues regarding this hypothetical Definitive Edition, and they call the entire existence of this remaster into question. First, let's get into that story content. Every Definitive Edition so far has come with not only new content in the main game, but also brand new story content set after the events of their original stories, acting as an epilogue. These epilogues have followed up on some loose ends from their respective games to give them closure, whether that be a character arc or a continuation of a story left abandoned for years. But just from that brief explanation, a problem starts to emerge. Xenoblade 2 does not fit into that criteria at all. Xenoblade 2 was conceived as a complete story since its inception. No cuts, no loose ends. What you got on December 1st, 2017 is what Monolith Soft intended you to experience. Well, minus the crashing part. So what would an additional story for Xenoblade 2 entail? It can't just not include one, since the precedent has already been set by the previous two DEs. It's not a suggestion, it's expected. What I've heard from discussions over the past few months, that it could basically be Xenoblade 2's future connected, now focused on Nia, on how she became queen, fighting off the Fog Celestia that Takahashi mentioned in the Ionios Moments art book, and chronicling events leading up to Xenoblade 3. This would probably be the story they would go with if they chose this route, but I can't really get myself excited for this. Sure, at the end of the day, it's more Xenoblade 2, but I can't get excited at the prospect of another future connected style piece of content. Would I like to find out how in the hell this thing became queen of a country? Sure, out of curiosity, yeah, but it's nothing I'm dying to know about. Other questions I have, like origin, the concept of light, and the status of Malos, will be better answered in a future mainline entry rather than in a condensed story that won't push the series forward. An epilogue story scenario is also called into question due to the existence of Torna, which was Xenoblade 2's additional story scenario during its post-launch. So would it even be necessary to have one to begin with if we already have an extra story already? Would this extra story be as exciting as a character finally getting closure, or a game finally receiving its ending after a decade of neglect? Personally, I don't think so. Ultimately, it would just feel pointless. That would be the word that I would describe the entire notion of this Definitive Edition. Pointless. There's something I haven't mentioned up until now, but there's another reason why Xenoblade 1 and X specifically got Definitive Editions. These two were chosen because both of these prior entries were inaccessible on modern platforms. Xenoblade 1 was stuck on the Wii, and I guess the new 3DS for the 6 people who played that version, and X was on the Wii U. Do I need to go on? These Definitive Editions acted as new life for these games, making them accessible on a platform with a huge install base. A problem Xenoblade 2 doesn't have. It was the closure for the God year that was the Switch's first year on the market, and has been accessible for nearly 8 years and counting. A remaster on the same platform is completely unnecessary and reeks of the stuff PlayStation has been doing this entire gen. And since it's a separate product, it'll give Nintendo the opportunity to charge Xenoblade 2 at full price once again with no upgrade path. So yeah, who's ready to buy the same game we've owned for almost a decade? I mean, I'll buy it, but it doesn't mean I'll like it either. All of those possible additions they could add in a Xenoblade 2 DE would be great, and greatly improved the core experience. But the Xenoblade 2 we have now, despite its many issues, is still a competent game that you can play start to finish right now on the Switch you have. There just isn't any purpose outside of wishful thinking. At this point, I feel like we've moved beyond the need for a definitive edition. We've definitely reached the limit on the value the format can provide for the series now. Pushing it any further will prove to be pointless, and those resources could be better used on any future projects Monolith has down the pipeline. But that's just regarding definitive editions as they are now. Things never truly stay stagnant, and much like our own lives, they tend to change and evolve over time to keep up with our own growth. Who's to say that the idea of a definitive edition can't evolve as well? And I think Nintendo has just laid the groundwork for that. Enter Nintendo's next generation console, the Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo has finally entered the 9th generation and has picked up on a few of this generation's trends, notably next-gen upgrades for last-gen games. They've split these upgrades into two categories. The first are free updates, which are mainly just resolution and performance bumps for specific games, and the other is more noteworthy in regards to this video, that being the Nintendo Switch 2 editions. The name speaks for itself. It's a Switch 2 version of a Switch 1 title. These paid upgrades come with resolution and performance enhancements like the free updates rolling out, but that's on top of including additional content. The content for these Switch 2 editions do vary from being an extra smartphone application to genuine expansions on par with the ports we saw during the Switch 1 era. They also hold an incredible value proposition for owners of the Switch 1 games, as they only need to pay a small fee to upgrade to the next gen version. So these versions could breathe life to many Switch 1 titles that were begging for more power than what the OG Switch could provide, all at a small cost. You see what I'm getting at here? This is the next step Xenoblade's definitive editions should take. All the usual content additions could be done via Switch 2 editions on top of the games looking better and running better. The Xenoblade games are known to be technical marvels on the original Switch, but playing them now, you can really see them being held back by the hardware, especially Xenoblade 2. Oh, I can count the pixels on this image, man. It looks so crusty, so performance and res bumps on top of the new quality of life additions and content would be a dream come true. It could literally be a definitive edition in all but name, but with none of the cons a DE would present. And it would be far easier to digest a smaller upgrade fee for this rather than paying full price for this game again. Like, come on, you guys really want to spend $70 on Xenoblade 2 in the big 27? Also, do you guys really want Monolith's first game on new hardware to be a remaster of a Switch 1 game from 10 years ago? Come on. But regarding the topic of cost, we gotta bring up the only downside to this new system, that being the full cost. Knowing what Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild's DLC regarding its Switch 2 edition, Xenoblade 2's expansion pass won't be included with the Switch 2 edition, which could prove daunting for newcomers. Imagine having to drop $60 for the base game, $20 for the Switch 2 edition, and then another $30 for the expansion pass, or a whopping $110 if you want the full Xenoblade 2 experience on Nintendo's next-gen console. It's such a baffling blunder for what looked to be a slam dunk of an upgrade system, but I guess Nintendo has to be Nintendo somewhere, right? So back to our question from the beginning of the video. Does Xenoblade 2 really need a definitive edition? If you've watched the video up until now, I think the answer is obvious. With the current definitive edition format we have now, I don't believe one is necessary. But now, times have changed, and there are other ways to update and remaster a game. I think we can retire definitive editions for good and welcome forth Nintendo Switch 2 editions. Do you agree that we don't need a DE, or do you argue you think it's still necessary? Leave it down in the comments, I would love to hear your takes. Will this video age like fine wine? Or will Monolith make a Xenoblade 2 DE regardless, and we'll be paying $70 for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Definitive Edition, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition in 2027? Honestly, I wouldn't be even surprised. Thank you all for watching till the end of the video. I'd like to give a shout out to my Pyrotechnic Ishtar and Pyromaniac Calixer. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate your support every day. I'm sorry it's been so long since the Torna video. I've been bouncing off of video ideas left and right for the past few months, but I'm getting a better flow now. It also feels nice to get a video of shorter length out every once in a while. It kind of messes with my mental state a bit when I'm doing these longer videos because I think of the droughts and look at the colossal amount of work I still have ahead of me, and it kind of becomes very demotivating. So working on a video that I can write and get to the editing process in a short amount of time is honestly refreshing. Also, I'm kind of getting tired of talking about Xenoblade again, as I've mentioned before, so the next few videos will be on non-Xeno stuff because I really want to flex my muscles and talk about other stuff just as passionately as I have for this series. So please look forward to that. The next video will be on Mario Kart World, because I've become incredibly addicted to it, and I really want to talk about my love for this game despite its numerous flaws that have been voiced by many over the past few weeks. Alright, that's about everything I have for now. Once again, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you guys very soon.